After much anticipation and wait, I finally got to play Anno 1800 by Martin Wallace. Hey everyone, I'm Jeff. Welcome back to Maple Musings. Today I am going to give my first impressions of Anno 1800 by Martin Wallace. I was able to borrow a German copy that we played actually. We played a game and a little bit of a game, not to give any spoilers, but I'll give you a very quick overview of how the game plays, and then I will give you my thoughts after a play. So let's get into it. Okay, so on your player board here, you're going to have all these different cubes which represent workers per worker placement. There are 5 different types. They each have a different name, but it was easiest just to call them green, blue, red, purple, and turquoise. So depending on the color, you can place them in different spots. So these spots here, for example, you would need to place red workers into them. The top row would need the green ones. Each spot can hold 2 workers. You have a card in your hand for each worker. So these would be secret, but I'm just showing them out here. So for each green and blue worker you have, you're going to have a card of that type, which is worth 3 points at the end of the game if you manage to play it out. So I have 7 of those because I begin the game with 7 of them. Then each of the higher end workers provide one of these cards, and they're worth 8 points, but they require a much harder threshold to play out. And I'll go over how that works here quickly. But essentially, on your turn, you're going to be building out these buildings because this is what's required to play these cards. So, for example, if we wanted to play this card out, we would need bricks and sausage. We do start the game with the ability to create bricks, but then we would need to be able to create sausage. So in order to build this sausage, we would need a pig and a coal. So we would take a cube here, put it on the pig, and then we would take a red cube here, put it on the coal. In order to build the sausage, we place the sausage on our mat, it flips over, and now we have a new spot where we can place blue workers in order to create sausage. So building this building on our mat here from the board would be 1 turn, 1 action. Then when it came back to our turn again, we could then say, okay, I'm going to play this card. I need to produce a brick and a sausage. So I play this card. This benefit's going to give me a purple worker. I place the purple worker in my area for purple workers, and because I got a new purple cube, I have to draw a new purple card. And that will go into my hand. Then this is flipped over, and it's worth 3 points at the end of the game. The game is going to end when somebody has completely played out their hand. And then the first person who completely plays out their hand is going to get this fireworks token, which is worth another 7 points. So some of these bigger cards are going to require some high-end goods. And in order to get them, let's see here, for example, this guy wants cigars, a coat, and a tractor. So in order to get a tractor, here, you can see we need rubber and a steam engine. So to get a steam engine, we need to have metal or brass sheets and iron. So then you have to go off and find that. If you need brass sheets, you need goods and coal, and so on and so forth. So there's a huge tech tree with a ton of different things in it that you need to build on your board in order to put workers on, in order to play out these cards. Now, if your opponent has built a industry in their town, you can pay trade tokens from your board. So you'll get them from your ships, or there'll be cards that you will play out in order to get them. So you're going to spend these trade tokens depending on what color of good your opponent has. You'll just spend it, and then that lets you use their good. So for example, if someone wanted to use my sausage, they would spend 1 trade good because 1 sausage is blue, which needs 1. And they just get a sausage. So if they had this card and they had this on their board, they could do that, pay 1 trade good to use my sausage, and they could play out the card and complete it. And I would receive 1 gold from them, from the supply for them using my sausage factory. There's only 2 of each of these, so in a higher player game, they will run out and you'll have to rely on your opponents building these things. But if they're not building them and you can't, like there's a lot of waiting for other people to build stuff if you can't. And I say if you can't because these ones here require goods off of these boards, and they're random, so you don't actually know what you're going to get when you take one of these. So I guess I should go over how you take one of those. So here, if you can take a large or a small exploration tile. The first one you take of each type costs 1 exploration token, and you're going to get those off of your ships here. So I could spend 1. These ones here, they are going to extend your town board. So they give you more water and more land to build on, the water for your ships. And then each one of these is going to have either a new printed building on it, which is just a blue version of these red buildings here, or it's going to give you more workers. So if I had spent my exploration token, flipped this over, and got 2 blue workers, they would come into my supply here, and I would have to draw 2 more of these cards to go into my hand. So that's what that one does. And then if you do the smaller tile, again, it costs 1 exploration token for the first one, and then 2 exploration tokens for the second one of each. These ones, they always give you this cloth, but the other 2 are going to be random. Also, when you draw these ones, you need to draw 3 of these cards. So if I played that, I would draw 3 of them. And these ones are worth 5 points each if you play them. Now, the problem with that is, if you really needed chocolate, for example, then you need cocoa as well as a pig. But I flipped this over and there's no cocoa on here. And these ones, in order to use them, you need to spend a trade token to trade with your own colony tile, and you cannot trade with an opponent's. So you need to keep exploring in order to get more of these tiles, to get the right goods, to build these industries here. Once you run out of workers or stuff to do, you can spend an action or a full turn to recall all your workers. So all your workers get returned to their spot on the board, and all of your ships refill their tokens up. You can build more ships to get more of these tokens, and that's done over here. So at the top here, you have all the different ports. You have a level 1, 2, 3, and then depending on which one you have built, you can build the level 1, 2, 3 ships that correspond to them. When you start the game with a level 1, when you build a port, it has to go on the shoreline as you'd expect. You can build level 1s for free. Level 2s, you need to have a purple cube, a wood, and a brick. And then these ones need the turquoise cubes, a brick, and an iron. When you build ships, each port you have on your board can build a ship. So if you have multiple ports, you can build multiple ships for 1 action. The The better ships cost more goods, but they supply you with more symbols for exploration or trade. Each game also, you have a random scoring goals. So at the end of the game, you'll score points depending on these cards. And there's also another action you can take. If you are able to collect these, you can take any action again, which is that symbol. There's also these cards which you can collect through different ways. And basically, at the end of the game, you will play these cards out. You'll place a cube on them if you have them. So we have a purple and a red here. So at the end of the game, if I had this card, I would score another 3 points because I had the citizens to fill those cube spots. You keep doing this over and over again until you can play out all of your cards to trigger the end of the game. Okay, so after playing this we played a one game at 2 players, and then we started a game at 3 players, and we made it, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes, and then we all agreed to pack this up because we just weren't feeling it. So first impressions, I was severely disappointed by this game. I think the hype and the fact that I really love brass and with Martin Wallace, I had very high expectations going into this, and they were not lived up to at all. It just felt very aimless. You spent all these turns lining up your resources and getting the industries built in order to play 1 card out, which then resulted in you drawing 2 more cards. It seemed like it should be a race to get rid of your cards, but I did not feel that race pressure like Istanbul, for example, where you're trying to be as efficient as you can to finish as fast as you can. This game, it just didn't feel like you could do that because it's like, okay, I need to build this, but in order to build this, I need this, but in order to build that, I need... And so in order to do what you actually wanted to do, you had to spend all these meaningless turns to get everything lined up to do that, to play 1 card. And it felt like it was way longer of a game than it needed to be. What else? The random, like I kind of went over it, but the random exploration tiles, like in the 2-player game, I needed to build a tractor, but I couldn't get rubber, and my opponent hadn't built it yet, and I had 2 cards left in my hand. And so if I explored to try and find the rubber, I would have to draw 3 more cards, which was totally against my goal, so I had to wait. And eventually he just, out of dumb luck, built the rubber, he built the thing that required the rubber that I needed. That's what it was. And so then I was able to trade, get the thing I needed, and finish the game, end up winning off of that. So he spent most of the game building up the infrastructure, which I in turn was then able to just trade and get it for no effort really at all. And I benefited from all his industry, and you get a gold each time, but that isn't really that helpful. It felt like these buildings needed to be worth points once you've built them onto your board or something. I don't know. The game just very much felt like it was just very disappointing. I rated this a 3 on BGG, and I actually took the time to write a blurb with my rating because I was just so disappointed with this game. I guess that's a good lesson not to follow the hype train, and to don't go into a game with such high expectations next time. But there has been confirmed an expansion for this, which sounds like it's going to fix a lot of the issues that I had with it anyways. Less randomness with drawing these tiles. It sounds like you can pick them. When you build an industry, there'll be a blocker on there so that no one else can trade with that industry till your next turn. So you have the first shot at using it before everyone else. There's going to be a better end game trigger. So instead of just dumping out all your cards, it's going to have like a scythe-esque star achievement thing. So when you play a big card that was worth 8 points, you put out a token saying that you did that, and it'll be worth points at the end. But as soon as X amount of those cards are played out, the game will end. However, this expansion isn't slated to be released till next year, and then however long after that again for the English edition. So like my friend said, by that time there's going to be 50 more amazing games out to play. So I don't know if I'm going to bother waiting for a patch for this to make it a playable game. Anyways, that was my first impression, first in a 20-minute play of a second game impression of Anno.